The Dig Podcast Series 10, all about real lives, real moments. And we just want to give you, our listener, a heads up that we will be covering some sensitive topics.
The way I describe it was putting on a mask. Like, I would cry the whole way to school, and I would get to the school gate, and it scared me how much we can mask our problems. Like, I was in a really dark place because it's been 4 years now. It's completely changed my life. It's like sharing your diary a little bit, you know. You have to be vulnerable in order to connect with people. That's the last drink I've ever had. Like, I woke up the next day, I felt suicidal. How have you got to this point at 32 where there's 2 failed relationships? There's clearly something wrong with you, nobody wants to be with you. I started doing this for my own mental health in this journey after my breakup, trying to learn strategies that I never got to that rock bottom phase again, so that if I could feel that I was starting to get down or whatever, that I could find coping mechanisms. And my kind of coping mechanism was...
Welcome to this week's episode of the Dig Podcast. I am sitting beside my guest. I love doing Zooms as well, but there's nothing like face-to-face, especially when you've never met the person before. And actually, when you're on social media, sometimes you're like, have I met you before? Or have I not met you before? But we have never met. But it feels like we've always known each other from the minute she's walked in. Caroline McKenna. So my own namesake, 2 Carolines together. That's bad news, trouble. But Caroline is the host of the globally recognised podcast, A County Down Under. And a lot of you will know her probably from social media, from that name as well, because that's her username, A County Down Under. And it means a lot of different things, and we're going to talk about that today. And I want to talk to Caroline today about the reasons why people are tuning into her on social media, because I know what I tune in for, but people actually watch her so much for loads of different things. So she's a broad spectrum, but advice and inspiration on travel. So if you are listening and you have someone in your family or you who perhaps wants to travel, or maybe wants to come home from traveling, this could be a good podcast for you to listen to, and maybe share it with someone that you think needs that wee bit of support and advice. I also want to talk about love and health and fitness and so much more. I'm not going to ruin it because she's the one that's going to tell us. Thank you for being on the Dig Podcast.
Oh, thanks so much for having me, Caroline. 2 powerhouses, the 2 Carolines.
I don't know, it can be dangerous when 2 Carolines come together, but I'm trying to think of when I started to follow you, probably when you were in Australia, and I don't know, I think we have a mutual friend, Annette Kelly,
yes,
and she was maybe talking about you, but whenever I did start following you, I was intrigued by, like, I know everybody always says to you, how do you do it all? But I was like, God, this girl is on fire here, always doing things. And then I noticed she went offline for a while. I was like, where did she go to? And then loads of things happened. But do you want to tell everybody who's listening who you are? I did a wee intro there.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I never anticipated any of this kind of social media world. I'm a teacher, and I'm from County Down, which is where A County Down Under came from. I moved to Australia. I couldn't get a job in Ireland as a teacher, and I kind of fell out of love with teaching. I just wanted to get out of here after my first year working in England. I just thought, this isn't what I want. I feel very lost. And my kind of coping mechanism was escape. And Australia just seemed like the perfect place. It was very different. I like to always be different. Back then, it wasn't as common as it is now. People usually went to Australia and never came home, and there wasn't the social media frenzy around it. Social media was still very much coming about. So I moved to Australia and I taught there. And during my time in Australia, I suppose the things that I would see online as social media started to grow and influencers came about was picture perfect lives in not just Australia, but in that age bracket of graduating. You know, everyone seemed to be just getting to that point of engagements and getting a house, or just in perfect relationships, or even just in Australia, like they were going out for margaritas on a Tuesday night, and I was going, well, I can't, I've got school tomorrow. So I just felt like there was a lot going on, and in the process I was in a relationship out there. I'd like fallen in love at university in Belfast, and we both kind of made our way to Australia and gave things a go for 6 years. And I suppose when you're out there, it's like a marriage because you live together. Everything goes very quickly. It's easier to move in together because of rent, and they become your only family member because you're at the other side of the world. So you heavily depend on these people. And when that all fell apart, I just realised that there was nowhere to turn. I couldn't find anything online in terms of resources. Like, I was Googling what to do when you break up with your partner living abroad. There was nothing. There was breakups, there was all, but it was not specific. So during COVID, I started doing some mental health seminars just as an educational thing. And someone said to me, you should record it as a podcast. And I thought, God, no, I don't know if that's what I want to do. And, what if my ex hears this? And I found a way to do it in a very respectable way that I never indulged in too much details. I never revealed any names, but just talked about like how it's really hard and it's okay if you're struggling too. I recorded a 15-minute episode. My students taught me how to do it. I was doing Zoom classes and they were like, Miss, you do GarageBand and you do this. And I was like, sure, I'll give it a go. I had no followers. It was a private, separate page to my page because I was still teaching. I wanted to keep it really professional. And that's why I kind of called myself a County Down Under as well, because I didn't want to associate my name with it. It was nearly like an anonymous thing to begin with. And that podcast blew up, Caroline, in the first week, which... like I was looking at the down, there was people from South Africa, North and South America, Canada. I had people from just mad parts of the world. And it's mad because it was amazing, but also like, wow, there's no handbook for this. Like, how do you learn? And that's it's been 4 years now. It's completely changed my life. In many ways, ups and downs, lots of highs and lows, as you know, that comes with it. You learn a lot about yourself. You learn a lot about how much you share. But overall, like, it's been fantastic. I've been able to help other people. But like, it's like sharing your diary a little bit, you have to be vulnerable in order to connect with people.
What was that first episode about then? Tell us so that for people who don't know.
Yeah, literally a summary just saying life isn't what it seems in Australia. It can be really difficult living out here and, you might be in a relationship, but you could be extremely unhappy, and that there's a huge culture in living abroad where we don't have family. So the way to socialize is through alcohol and for, unfortunately, some people drugs. So that wasn't really talked about. And I was seeing a lot of like people, unfortunately, like in very bad mental health situations where their parents thought they were living their best life out there, but they were really, really struggling. And unfortunately, there were some suicides out there. So I just felt like someone needs to talk about this. Like we're masking over the problem here. We're all running to Australia to escape, but like we need to start connecting outside of the bars. And that's where my Sunrise Socials came about, where I tried to like bring people together over a coffee and a sunrise rather than let's go to the tea gardens and get wrecked on a Friday night. So that was kind of the mindset behind it, was just let's look after each other a bit better living abroad.
And that helped you build that community then? Because I used to watch, I was like, you'd have thought when I was watching now that the sun only rose in Australia, because I was like, isn't that unreal that they do that? And I should have been thinking I could do that, but you did open up that conversation and that community of, let's get out with nature and step away from the things that are distracting us from living our lives. That's Absolutely. What I took from it. So you built this whole community, and there was Sunrise Socials all over Australia, and then people started to do it over here as well. Didn't that happen? Like a ripple
we've
effect?
One in Tyrone.
Do you?
Yeah, it's become a movement now, and it's brilliant. It's just people coming together. There's no cost. It's kind of like, I love Darkness into Light. I'm an ambassador of Darkness into Light, and I love that whole idea of everyone coming together once a year at Sunrise. And I thought, why don't we do that like more often? Like, why? I don't want to wait till the next year to promote positive mental health. Like, why don't we make this like a gathering? It was a lot more challenging here because, I mean, days like today, who wants to get out of bed? But it really did create a movement, and the BBC, ITV and stuff kind of picked up on it. And we've 43, 44 all over the world now. And that's what I was trying to show as well, like that the sun rises everywhere, but I would never have got up for sunrise in Ireland before I left. But it's all a mentality, and it makes such a difference to your day.
I'm converted. I'm gonna get up in Clono every morning. But I know we're laughing, but there is so much in that with the nature and the realization that the world is bigger than your problems and all that when you do that. So it's amazing the work that you're doing. But whenever you were over there, and like obviously that was heartache for you, you broke, your relationship broke down or whatever. There will be people listening that perhaps have family going through that out there. What was your coping mechanisms then? How did you get through that time?
Truthfully, it was tough, because the easy option was just pack up your stuff and leave Australia. And I think, I'm kind of painting Australia in a very dim light there, but Australia changed my life and changed me, with all the hardships and with all the the tough days at work or dealing with people or different cultures, it makes you into a better person. And I think anyone should travel, not just to Australia, but all over the world, and learn more about yourself and other people. And I was also teaching full time. So my students were about to sit their GCSEs. So the way I describe it was putting on a mask. Like, I would cry the whole way to school, and I would get to the school gate, and it scared me how much we can mask our problems. Like, I was in a really dark place because my boyfriend was my whole life, and we'd built a life together, and our friends were all together. So I was at the other side of the world completely alone. I put myself in a position where my relationship was everything, and I just put all my eggs in one basket. And at 27, you know, I thought, I'm going to marry this man, and, you know, this is only temporary in our life, but we're going to move home together. And when that all fell apart, I was like, who am I? Am I even in Australia for me? Did I ever come here for me? Was I just following him? Like, what do I actually like? And it was a real scary, dark place to know, like, I don't really know who I am without him. So for like 6 weeks, until it got to the Easter holidays, I just had to go into school. And literally, I remember like being at the gate of the door and just going, like, crying on the phone to my mum. She was in Ireland, and she's about to go to bed, and I'm like, I just don't think I can get out of bed. I don't know if I can do this another day. And she's like going, you know, you're grand, see you later. And then I would hit the wee buzzer, walk in and go, and I could see the students, and they're like, morning, Miss McKenna. And I was going, good morning. Like, nobody knew. And that scared me, that, you know, how many other people are feeling that way. Like, how many of us are truly suffering. Like, I was lying on my friend's floor in his living room for weeks. I had nowhere to live. But you'd never have known what was going on behind closed doors. So my coping mechanism isn't one that I would use now. It was suffer in silence and get on with it. And that's what I try and endorse now, is like, absolutely don't even let it get to that point. I try and now promote like what a healthy relationship should look like. And that's taken me to go through a relationship like that, to realize that that person is part of your life, but not your whole life. And you had a life before them, and you'll have a life after them. But you can get so consumed in that, and even just the shame. Before I even had a public Instagram, but you know, you put up a photo of you and your partner going to a wedding on your private Instagram, and then the idea of deleting that, what will everybody think? And oh my God, they're going to know we're not together anymore. You go into this mad thought in your head, but like, everybody else is dealing with their own problems, that it's louder than you think it is. You know, it's not really that big of a deal to other people. They might think, oh, they've broken up, move on to the next thing. So that's what I try and navigate, is little things like that, and just let people know that it's okay how you're feeling. So yeah, it was tough. And then I just kind of went on a 2-year self-exploration of how do you cope better. Like, I started to study a little bit more about mental health and learn some breathing techniques. I started to do cold water therapy. I started to learn to be uncomfortable in my own company until I became comfortable on my own. Now I thrive on my own. I love being on my own. I'm nearly like, you know, social battery, 60 minutes maximum. But yeah, so that's kind of it in a nutshell, Caroline. I could bore you to death with it all.
No, but I think that's really important, because you know, you do, and I suppose this is relevant not just for people in Australia, but people who are going through a breakup. Like, I mean, you do put a mask on, I presume, whenever you're out and about, but then your heart's breaking inside and your life can fall apart. So this is really important conversation, and I can see the impact that it's had on the people, your community, because so many people are following you and reach out to you for support in that way. But in Sunrise Social as well, I'm sure a lot of them are there to try to find their way through whatever is happening. So it's such an important conversation. Is there any organisations that can help people as well that we could maybe link in the show notes or anything?
Yeah, there's some really great organisations. For me, I like went to my doctor actually, and now that was in Australia, but they put me like on a mental health plan where I was able to then go and see a counsellor, which was brilliant. And that's what I like. There's no shame in asking for help. Within Northern Ireland, there's some great organisations like PIPS that you can just pop in and have a cup of tea, and you know, a problem shared is a problem halved. And even just the resources online, there's some great books and audiobooks, and more people are starting to open up and be real, which is fantastic. But yeah, I just encourage people to just like come to the next Sunrise Social on Saturday. If you're having a bad week, find out where your local Sunrise Social is. They're usually not too far away, and see just the power of sitting, watching the sun come up. Even if it's a rotten day, you got up early, you talk to someone beside you with a cup of coffee. I just think there's so much power in that, you know, and just conversation with people and not knowing that probably that person has gone through something similar. We've all had our heart broken. But even if you're just feeling lost or in your 30s and you feel like you shouldn't be where you should be compared to your friends, or you haven't met someone and you're worried you might never meet someone, we're all going through the same things. We're just not talking about it.
The Dig podcast means so much to us because we're able to help people with actionable advice, both in the world of work and life. And so many people are listening, thousands of downloads, but some people still haven't hit that follow button or subscribe. I'm guilty of it too. I listen to podcasts and I actually haven't taken that action. But I'm asking you today, if you do love the podcast and you want to keep seeing more guests, if you could hit follow on Spotify or Apple, or if you watch on YouTube, if you hit that subscribe button, it helps the podcast grow. And in turn, I can continue to have brilliant guests that bring you great advice each week. I know. And even nothing to do with heartache, just challenges in life, things like that can really help you. And then whenever you were in Australia, like you went through this whole journey with alcohol as well. Because I told my mum that you were coming on the podcast, and she's like, well, I don't know that girl now, what's her story? And I says, well, she gave up alcohol. I've told her everything. And I was like, but she gave up alcohol. She says, oh, was she an alcoholic? And I said, no, she wasn't. Yeah. But she gave it up because, and then I tried to explain. I was like, look, you can listen to the podcast, but this is a big thing, the drinking culture, what it can do to your life and how it can make you feel so down and amplify things. Do you want to talk about that? Because it's a big thing. Like,
absolutely. It's so funny because most people have the same reaction. Like, God, you know, what happened that you had to give up the alcohol? I did an episode on it where I talked about the day, like, you know, when you go out nights out and you wake up with a bad hangover and you think, I'm never drinking again. I felt like that from day one. Like, I don't know where this whole expectation as a society is, like, where when you're 18 you get your first drink, but if you get it before then you're a bit like cooler, and there's really this culture of socializing around alcohol. And it was the same when I was growing up, you know. It was just the done thing, but no one ever once said to me, you know, you can still go out without drinking. Like, you're not gonna, like, it's the fear of missing out, of if I don't do what everyone else is doing, I'll not get to go out and party or whatever. So I wish someone had given me that option before. But basically, it got to my 32nd birthday, Caroline, and I was just in this rut of living in Australia, in the rat race, having an amazing time, but just constantly chasing my tail, where I'd go out, work hard all week, go out at the weekend, Sunday comes, I haven't got any groceries for the week. I'm dying. The anxiety of the week ahead at school is beyond. The Monday fear is amplified. And on a Sunday, when you're living away from home, you know, you really miss that family element. And I think sometimes you can glorify it as well, where I'd be like, you know, if I was at home, I'd be having Sunday dinner and forgetting about all the arguments and at the family dinner table. You know, you just really, I felt like I became the patron saint of Ireland. I was like, oh, geez, you know, in Ireland we would have done this, but it probably wasn't like that at all. But there's a real loneliness of being in an apartment in Sydney, even if you've got a partner or housemates. But on that Sunday, it's every man for themselves. Like, you know, no one's coming in to save you, or no one's coming to say, do you need breakfast? Like, have you any food in the fridge? Like, you're on your own, like, very independent life right there. And it got to my 32nd birthday and I'd just broken up with my partner, and he'd gone home to Ireland. There was this real Peter Pan syndrome out in Australia, we call it, where people don't want to grow up. Like, we kind of go there, it's like an adult Disneyland, you know, we're not ready to give it all up. It's kind of like the Holy Lands with a lot of money that you're making in your job. And it always comes that point of, you know, when you're a woman, you get to your 30s and you're thinking, right, what's the next 5 years looking like? And I always find that so many of us out there, women especially, we're getting to that point, and the men just, they're a little bit behind in terms of, not all of them, and I wouldn't tar all of them the same brush, but why would they give up the high life when, you know, it's like being on holiday for them. So I had kind of had my conversation with my boyfriend about, you know, what's the next 5 years looking like? And he just panicked and he flew home to Ireland. And again, I got myself, this is the second heartbreak, and I thought, how are you in this situation at 32? I wasn't going to go out for my birthday, and my friend said, come on, let's do it. And again, the culture around even a breakup is, come on, we'll all go out in the town, we'll have a good night, get the drinks in, yada, yada, yada. And went out for it, and there's a lot of bottomless like drinks and nights out and stuff in Australia, and we were out from 12 o'clock in the day drinking margaritas, and I mean the first sip of it, poison. And we were out till late that night, and then it was on to the vodkas, and it was really like this, let's get wrecked because I'm single now, and and that's the last drink I've ever had. Like, I woke up the next day, I felt suicidal, truthfully, and that's not easy to say. I just felt like, how have you got to this point at 32 where there's 2 failed relationships, there's clearly something wrong with you, nobody wants to be with you, and you're on your own on your actual birthday, because it was the night before we went out, and it's Sunday, back to square one, empty fridge, anxiety for Monday. At this point, my Instagram was alive and kicking. This was 2 years into my social media page. I documented my boyfriend on Instagram, so not only now was I dealing with, the likes of when you're on a private page, or even just local people knowing about your relationship breaking up, but now I had maybe 30,000 people that knew that I was with this person, and all of a sudden they're not there. So yeah, I was in a really, really dark place. Now, I didn't wake up that day and say, I'm not drinking again. I woke up that day and I was like, I don't know, I don't see any hope in my life. And I had poisoned myself that much with margaritas that it came to 2 weeks later. It was my friend's hen party, and I couldn't stomach a drink. I was so unwell for the whole week at school. I felt like someone had like twisted my stomach. But there was a real shame about saying, I'm not drinking tonight. It was never, I'm not drinking ever again. That I actually called up the restaurant and, like, behind everyone's back and said, I'm coming to this hen party tonight. I don't want to tell my friends I'm actually pregnant. Oh, a lie. Just, I didn't want to say I don't drink. So can you just, like, none of them know, can you just pour me orange juice so that they don't know the difference in the cocktails? And they were brilliant. Like, they came down with the jugs, and I could see they had like blue tape underneath one of the jugs, just under the thumb, and they were pouring that to me. But I didn't want to tell and it's this real culture of, if you tell your friends you're not drinking that night, it's like, wise up, don't be dry, don't be boring, have a drink, and like, something strange happened that night where, like, I was sitting there, I didn't want to be there, but I wanted to be there for my friend. And about 2 hours in, I realised that I was having the same night I would have had I drank, apart from the part where, you're so hungover the next day. But I realised, it's actually the people in your life. I had a good night, and I went home when it was starting to become carnage, but I think everyone should go home at that point. I don't think anyone should stay past that. And I woke up the next day, it was Sunday, I was fresh, I went and got my groceries, and I just liked the feeling of it. And I thought, I'm going to do that next weekend. And then I'm going to do it the next weekend. There was never I'm never drinking again. And it's like, I started to notice a difference in my sleep. My anxiety was, I thought like that I was just a very anxious person. That was something I was maybe diagnosed with, and that I was maybe always just a bit down or depressed. And I didn't realise how much drink was actually, even if I only had like 1 or 2 glasses of wine at a dinner, it was all impacting everything. So we're now 2 years in, and I'm never going to drink again. And I just wish someone had have educated me back then that, yeah, like I have a brilliant social life. I was in Ibiza sober, which was a sight to behold. I go to festivals, and I just feel like I'm me again. I'm around the right people, and I'm doing things that I want to do. I save a fortune. I go traveling the world now with the money I would have blew in the bar. And I sleep better. I feel better. I don't cry anymore. I would have cried at like EastEnders. And now I'm like, come on, just give us one tear. Like, I didn't realise that it was making me teary like all the time, even a difficult day at work, and I would burst into tears. So yeah, I recommend, if anyone's even interested or wanting to know more about the science behind it, I listened to a podcast that changed it for me, and it was Dr. Huberman. He's a Stanford professor, and he talked about the impact that even just 1 glass of wine can have on your body. And I was like, God, right, so it's not just me, like, it's actually science behind it. So I don't condone anyone that drinks. Like, some people are really good at it, they can spring up the next day and they're grand, but for a lot of people it's a depressant.
Wow. Oh my God. Like, I listened to you talking about that, and I would never travel, so wasn't really in that culture of being out and drinking like that. But I can see how that could get a hold of you and make it, like, that's so emotional to listen to the state you were in. And if you had let that spiral, you mightn't even be here talking to me today. So I think that there's, if anybody's listening, and I think maybe somebody needs to hear this even, I know you do a lot of support for people that would reach out about that. So maybe, well, I'll be sharing all the handles on our show notes and all for your social media. But I just think that is such a big conversation. And I do see a lot of people talking about it now as well. It's a bigger thing now where you don't have to drink and all. It's brilliant.
Yeah.
Because it does affect your mental health so much. Wow, that's so powerful, and I'm just so glad that you do talk about that online. And we're talking about online, so you have built a community on there, and you're a very positive person, and you always try to share actionable tips, and that's why I like following you. But sometimes it doesn't matter. People still don't like you, and don't agree with you, and like to tell you that they don't, and all that. So there was a time when you stepped away, isn't that right? Do you want to talk about that if you can?
Yeah, absolutely. I suppose I just never thought when I was coming on and trying to share and be, talking about mental health and trying to help people. Like, I was doing this while teaching full time, and I was doing this as a hobby, and it wasn't a career. So it wasn't anything. There was no money being made, and it was all just sharing tips and sharing any help and advice I could give. And I just never assumed that you would get negativity. Why would you when you're just trying to help people? And how wrong was I? The internet's a very dangerous and scary place, and part of the reason I wanted to go on there was because as a teacher, I'm a high school teacher, and I was in front of these students day to day, female students from 11 to 18, and seeing the detrimental impact like social media had on them, in terms of how their bodies looked, who they were idolizing. Instead of saying, "Miss, I want to be a doctor," or lawyer or nurse or anything, they were saying, "I want to be Kylie Jenner, I want to be a YouTuber." And it was worrying me where the internet was going. So I just thought I was trying to bring back that, normality, and have someone that people can relate to, and you can just be a teacher online, and you don't have to, do something that you don't want to do, or post half-naked pictures of yourself in order to be validated. And yeah, it was really tough. I found that, unfortunately, a lot of people from home, which is really hard to say, but Irish girls were my biggest trolls. And I thought, women supporting women and all the rest. And it was awful, because when I would see a message like that come up, I would go on to these people's pages to be like, God, who's that giving me this horrific message? And in their bio they might say, be kind, or I could see that they were at a suicide prevention event, doing these walks and raising money for charity. And it was such a tough time in my life that I realised, not everybody in the world has good intentions, and I just was very naive and sheltered to thinking everyone is nice. I know obviously you can get some difficult people, but even just they would share my story and think that they were talking about me to each other, but they were replying to me and saying things like, who does she think she is? And I mean, that's just minor. People were commenting on my nose, and I've always had an insecurity about my nose. I used to get bullied at school, and it's taken a lot for me to find confidence to stay in, there's so many things you can do with yourself. And I've had cosmetic surgery companies in Turkey offer me every surgery under the sun for free. And, I've stayed true to myself to try and be that influence for younger kids to just find confidence in yourself without having to do anything. And when people are saying things like that, you're going, God, or people were coming up to me in the bars just after a few drinks, and just saying, I don't like you because, and they just felt like that they had the right, because I was a public figure, that they could give me their opinion on me without realising that it was making me feel very targeted. I started to get afraid to even go into the bathroom on my own in Irish bars in Sydney, because that was my target audience. And there I was, reaching that audience, and then I'd go into local bars and people with a few drinks in them would just tackle me in the bathrooms and just tell me they don't like this about me, they don't like this, and their friend thinks this, but I do like you, but they don't like you. And I'm thinking, you don't realise the impact that has on someone. So it just got to the point where it was very, very heightened, and I never thought I would ever come back online again. And then it was something my dad said to me, he was like, I remember him saying, Cristiano Ronaldo is the most trolled person on the internet, and he is the most amazing footballer. He's the best footballer in the world, some would say. And he was like, do you think Cristiano Ronaldo's lying in bed the way you are, crying over people online? He said, get yourself up. At this point, like I had Gym Plus Coffee sponsoring the podcast. There was lots of opportunities coming with it. And I was about to give it all up for a couple of people. And, what difference would that have made in their life? They would have got on with their life and I would have completely altered where my life was going. So I got back up again. And I mean, I think you just develop a thicker skin, but you probably are the same. I can nearly tell when a message is going down the wrong way just from the first sentence or two. I don't mean this in a bad way, but, and then I think, I'm not even reading that, so I've got better at it, but it's an awful world. Like it is, like that social media world is a double-edged sword. It can create so many opportunities, but there are people out there trying to tear you down, and TikTok has come along and it is on another level of trolling, to the point where 9 times out of 10, I don't even read the comments, but there will always be some time where you just get caught off guard and you think, God, like there's times where I can be like, you know what, that person's really hurting. Like, I feel sorry for them, but other times they find something and it just, no matter how strong of a person you are, they get you.
So is it abstinence? Is it abstinence from reading that protects your mental health?
I would say, truthfully, Caroline, just coming back into the real world. Being out in Australia, I was so removed from my family that I was on my phone all the time. Being back home, and I think that's why I've chosen to live with my parents as long as I have, since I've been home a year and a half now. But they've brought me back to reality. I didn't realise how much I was on my phone. And now I feel like I'm, 16 in the house again, where we don't have the phone at the dinner table. My family will call me out and say, you're not even listening, you're on your phone, put that phone away, you've been on for a long time. And at the beginning I was going, I'm a 32-year-old woman, leave me alone. And now I'm like, can you take my phone off me, please? And I don't have my phone in my bedroom. My dad when I first came home, he picked up on me taking my phone into my room because that was my alarm. And they're very old school. Like my dad's like, he doesn't even use an alarm clock. He just uses the sun to wake up. He's mad. And he was like, you need to get an alarm clock. An alarm clock costs nothing. How do you think we used to get up when we were younger? Because I used to argue with him and say, I needed to get up in the morning. And see, just having good people around you that genuinely don't care about how your success is on Instagram or how many followers you have or what brand is. Like, we don't talk about any of that stuff in my house. I might mention, like I said to Mummy and Daddy, I was coming up here today, and they're like, great, happy days. They're not consumed by it, that if it all fell away tomorrow, I know that I'm safe. I've got a house, like roof over my head. I don't have a house. I've got a roof over my head. I've got my family. Everyone's healthy. So I think that really has been the big thing for me. Just quietening the noise a bit, because you can just get so in your head.
We're just taking a short little break in the Dig podcast to shine a light on our fantastic partner, Linwoods Health Foods.
Small changes every day make the biggest difference to our health. That's why adding Linwood's milled organic flaxseed blends to your breakfast is a simple addition with a big impact. Just 2 dessert spoonfuls packed with plant-based protein, magnesium and omega-3 can help maintain muscle mass, support energy levels and maintain normal cholesterol levels. Linwoods is available in all supermarkets, health food stores and online at linwoodshealthfoods.com. Make a better start every day with Linwoods, proud sponsors of the Dig podcast.
And now back to our guest. I don't know, I'm just taking a deep breath because I'm thinking of all, I do know. And like there's been, it was actually just last night, I said to Jared, we're watching the news and sometimes I think I could do anything. I could be anyone. I can do anything. I can go and work in a supermarket because I've done that before. I can be an occupational therapist. I've done that before. I can do anything. I don't need this. Mm-hmm. I don't need this. And I said to Jared last night watching the news and I was like, and Stormont was on and they were all thinking, I was like, maybe I could be a politician. And he's like, are you serious?
You could.
He goes, they get some stick politicians too. He goes, everybody that has perhaps a voice or in any way takes control of their life like that in the public eye will always get this. Mm-hmm. You need to learn how to deal with it.
Yeah.
And it's hard. It's hard. And sometimes I get it. throw these cards away. I don't want to do this anymore. Well, I love it. Just like you love doing our work and the impact it can make. Like you're talking about that, about mental health and helping someone that perhaps is going to go down a slippery slope. That is why you're doing this, and this is worth it. But when you get the messages, you know, so you block it out. I try not to read the comments. I got one the other day that said to me, blah, 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 hurl of abuse, and who would listen to you anyway with all your failed businesses on the ES and commas, and or was in brackets. And I read out Jared, he was like, what? And I was like, businesses? But I said, I don't even know what to say to this. But even though I know that's not valid, it hits you.
Oh, and they know what they're doing. And I always think, like you say, when we had this conversation before, take a minute and pause and then think, what in the name of God would ever possess? Like, no matter what way you feel about someone, I just think you have to be in such an awful state to need to go on and tear someone down. There's things that none of us like or disagree with, but never in my wildest dreams would I ever do that or say anything to anybody. And I remember James Smith once said online, you wouldn't go into your local shop, like into their business and stand there to the shopkeeper and say, I don't like what you're doing in here. Because the shopkeeper would tell you, well, get out then, you know, whereas there's some sort of thing where people, they mightn't be following you, but they still feel, I can come onto your page, tell you how I feel, even though I'm not following anything that you're doing. And then I'm just going to quickly remove myself. But I remember Mum even saying, you know, Caroline, this has always been going on. People have always been talking about each other and, you know, who does she think she is? And look at her driving with that car. But now it comes home with you. And that's something we're trying to educate kids with in my centre is taking a phone into your house is like an unwelcoming guest. And we need to treat the phone like that for the younger generations, because you could think things are fine with your kids and everything's good and you don't know what's going on behind that screen. So trying to monitor that as much as possible, removing phones from the bedroom, getting a charging station at night, but locking it, because I have students coming in and, you know, they've been up scrolling all night and I'd say, where does your parent think that your phone is? Oh, well, we have a charging station downstairs, but whenever they go to sleep, I go down and get it. And I'm going, you know, like we need to nip this in the bud. So like, I don't think I could have dealt with this at 15 or 16. And that's what scares me about the younger ones. And what we try and tell them is, you know, it's not real life. Like, you're okay. As much as it might feel like world ending, you're okay. You're safe. And those people don't matter.
Oh, such good advice. And I don't want the podcast to be caught up with, you know, us getting consumed by that either, because it's not real. They're not people that we care about or love that would do that to us. So it really doesn't matter. I actually listened to Mickey Hart, for anybody that follows GAA. He's a very positive mindset. He's been through a lot in his life. And it was whenever he went to train dairy and he's a Tyrone man, there was a whole like hoo-ha online, and it was the UTV News, I think, interviewed him, and they were like, or maybe it was BBC, Mickey, what have you got to say about all the, you know, controversy online with what you've done? And he was like, I don't know what you're talking about. And the man was like, really? And he's like, oh, I wouldn't never read any of that. I would never read or listen to anything negative like that, because like that would stop me from doing my work. And I took a lot from that, even though it was a wee snippet. I was like, oh God, you know, you can't, because then it'll stop you from doing your good things.
Yeah.
So thank God you came back online, because now you're actually helping people, kids. So you've talked about your centre, and we're going to come on to that. But before you do, you do a lot of, you've got a great faith in Wim Hof and all of that. Can you talk to us about that? Because I'm intrigued. I'm not a doer, but I'm a listener at the minute. But tell me about that and why that's been important, and also the mouth tape thing that you do.
I brought you some mouth tape today.
She did bring it.
And basically, I started doing this for my own mental health in this journey after my breakup, trying to learn strategies that I never got to that rock bottom phase again, so that if I could feel that I was starting to get down or whatever, that I could find coping mechanisms. I struggled really badly after my breakup with insomnia, and I went to the doctors, and straight away they gave me sleeping tablets. So for 2 years, and like not many people know this, but like I was completely hooked on sleeping tablets just to try and get a night's sleep so I could go into school and be able to function for the kids. And I like, as I started to read books, I read a book called The Oxygen Advantage by Patrick McKeown. He's a Galway man. Just in passing, starting to mingle with different crowds and doing cold water dips, and you start to meet people on your wavelength. And someone suggested this book, and it's all about nasal breathing and how we breathe during the day, and how your breathing can be like, it's one of the first sentences, it said something like, you know, we can go days without food, months without months without food, days without water, maybe not months, weeks. Anyways, that time of the day, kind of, but only minutes without our breath. And it's never been at the forefront of education on how to breathe properly. Now, I'm not talking the extremes of the Wim Hof, which I was doing, which I'll go into, but just even little things like that. And I look back at when I was struggling mentally, and the doctor never just said to me, how are you? How are you sleeping at night? You know, what's your routine like? Are you using your phone before bed or any of this? It was just straight onto the tablets. And I started to learn all these things and thought, God, you know, no one ever taught me that. Or why weren't we taught how to slow down or regulate our breathing? That would have helped me pass my driving test the first time. If because it was all panic, I would have maybe not failed that module in my GCSE and had to repeat it, because it was the mind racing and the panic that took over instead of just giving myself a second, a bit like the trolling, you know. Imagine all the text messages that I regretted sending if I had taken a big deep breath or had regulated my breathing. So I started to look into all this stuff and found a lot of fantastic things. The mouth tape I use every single night, it puts me into a deep, deep sleep. So you close your mouth over, but you can still open it if you need to, because some people don't like it to have it fully taped over. But it encourages you to nasal breathe, because we're mouth breathers. We're actually using a lot of energy, so we're exhausted in our sleep. We're working overtime. It's also really good for your dental hygiene as well, and it stops you getting up at night because your mouth's dry. Reach for a glass of water. It stops you getting up to go to the bathroom. And with the crazy world that we're living in, you definitely need a mouth tape, because you and I are very similar in that even if I only get 6 hours sleep, depending on what kind of day I've had, I wake up the next day and feel like I've had 9, because my body's actually been resting. It's not been all night. And that's Patrick McKeown's work as well. It's funny, I was reading his book, and now I work alongside him to try and educate people on this, and he works with Coldplay, teaching them how to regulate their breathing before they go on stage. He works with the Formula 1 team to regulate their breathing before they take on the dangerous 72 laps they're about to do for the Formula 1. So it's really, really interesting. The Wim Hof stuff, I wanted to be different online, in that I wanted to show the power of the mind and how you can absolutely overcome anything, and to let people know that when they're in the pits of depression, which I have been in, that you can get your mind out of that by doing the impossible. And it can feel like the impossible, but just how powerful the mind can be versus how detrimental it can be. So I've just taken on challenges over the last 2 years. Not that my mum's happy about it at all. But I went away for a week to Wim Hof, and I mean, Caroline, at one point, my skin was blue. I was hiking up a mountain for 5 hours in a bikini in, where was I? Poland. I don't even remember where I was. And I mean, I was walking up this mountain going, every step I took, I was like, you know, my mum was right. I'm going to die out here. She was Googling it, and people had died on this expedition. But in my mind, I was saying, just take another step, 1 foot in front of the other, 1 foot in front of the other. And I got to the top 5 hours later, and it was just, I couldn't believe. Now, if you asked me to go and stand outside right now in the cold, I'd be going, I'm freezing. But if you put your mind into that kind of strength, there is an inner strength that you don't even know. It's unbelievable what you can achieve. And I don't want anyone to go out and do those crazy things, but what I'm trying to say is, you know, whatever way you're feeling, just, you need to train that brain of yours, just 1 foot in front of the other, 1 foot in front of the other. Stop overthinking things. If I was overthinking, you know, I probably would have collapsed in the first hurdle. And people were collapsing around me. And whenever you see people collapsing, you're going, well, if they're collapsing, and it's mad how your brain can just go, oh, I'm going to fail now. But you just have to stay tunnel vision. And that's where I kind of went and did that. And it was mental. I was doing things that I wouldn't advise anyone, but just that, to know that your brain's a very powerful tool, but it can also put you in a very dark and dangerous place. So whatever way you're feeling, get out of it or reach for help. And yeah, then I've gone on to do Kilimanjaro. the tallest freestanding mountain in the world. And all of these things is all about promoting and raising money for PIP suicide prevention charity. And now I'm heading to Everest in April. We're trying to raise £100,000 for PIP suicide prevention charity, because that's kind of where this all started from, was just, I don't want to lose another friend to suicide. I don't want to lose another student in the classroom to suicide. And if I can make a difference to one person, I'll take the trolling online, in a heartbeat, because I always go back to what Annette Kelly taught me in difficult days, whenever you're struggling with social media, is focus on your why. You can get caught up in the endorsements and the brand ambassadors and all these cool things that people can throw your way. But if it doesn't align with me, I don't do it. Like, you'll not see me promoting, I don't know, a gambling app or cosmetic surgery or things that, like a skinny tea or anything like that, because that's not my purpose. I work with Gym Plus Coffee because they work with the communities. Be Perfect have done so much within the community. Teachers, education, mental health. I'm an ambassador for PIPs. So all these things, I just focus on your why. Don't get caught up in, because it's easy to just kind of let the social media take over and think to yourself, do you know what, geez, this is great. Like, all these free gifts and all this stuff. And I've come back to what matters to me. And there was a time where I let it take over and I kind of lost myself. I didn't know why I was even doing it anymore. And I was saying yes to free Tato boxes, and what's that got to do with mental health? So I feel like I found myself again, and not found myself, but like I always say, from the ashes rises the phoenix. I feel like I'm a newborn person from it all, but it's been tough, as you know. It's tough going.
But you seem so much happier and so strong. You seem so strong, like so strong. To watch you online is a very positive experience. And you explaining all of that makes you see the journey you've been on. Like, we could talk about it all day, but now you're making an impact with your people online, but you're making an impact with your students in your new business. Talk about that. And I know I don't want to keep you, because I know you have a flipping meeting about climbing Mount Everest tonight, so we need to get you away. But what about, like, that's a very powerful thing, that face-to-face connection with kids. And what are you doing? What is it?
So I opened Nurturing Minds a year ago. From the money I made on social media, I wanted to put it back into actually helping other kids, so that no child goes through the education system and gets to 30 and then has to try and figure it all out like we've had to do. I want kids to learn the techniques with their mental health from a very young age. So I miss teaching. I gave up teaching a year and a half ago because life just got so busy. I was trying to balance everything. And then I found that I was a wee bit lost just being in front of my phone and creating content. And I was born to be a teacher. Anyone that's a teacher, it definitely is a vocation. But I feel like, in terms of the way things are going with the education system, teachers are not being treated the way they should be. They're burning out far quicker in their career age than they would have before. No one's really getting to 65, 70 anymore. Like, I'm talking to teachers in their 30s that are really struggling. So I wanted to teach, but I wanted it to be on my terms, where I just want to be Miss Honey. I don't want all the late night parent teacher meetings, the hundreds of reports, the pressures, the deadlines, the constant you're not doing enough feeling, the guilt on a Sunday when you've gone for an hour and had a cup of tea with your family, but you've so much work on, taking 2 weeks out of the 8 weeks of the summer holidays to actually have a holiday, and then the rest prepare for the year. It was just this constant cycle. So I opened Nurturing Minds because I miss teaching. I feel like that's when I'm at my best. Social media is amazing, but it's not me. It was never meant to be my career. So I want to use it hand in hand to try and make an impact. And it's been open a year now. We educate children, primary and secondary, in English and maths. But before they start their lesson, Caroline, all children come in and we work alongside PIPs. They give us lots of resources. They put on workshops for us. Patrick McKeown has brought in all of his books and his mouth tape and stuff. And we teach children how to cope with things that are going to come their way when they're older. So just mental health strategies and tools like journaling, or how to regulate your breathing. We do breathing techniques with them. We talk about our feelings. You don't have to wait until it gets to the point of crisis where you need a psychologist. Let's learn mental health strategies like it's brushing your teeth. Like, it should just be every day. I don't feel this way. Why am I feeling this way? Let's have a think about it. Who's good in my life? Who makes me feel happy? who makes me feel sad? Maybe I should stay away from that person because they're making me feel like I'm not good enough. You know, just little things that we weren't taught. And that's what I find very frustrating about the education system is we're not there yet and it's taken too long. And I was going into the classroom and there was children in front of me with anxiety, with depression. There was children on so many different medications. And they were getting one lesson a fortnight on pastoral care. And they were going to those lessons going, I don't want to go to this, miss, because I have so much work on. And I was like, you know, we're doing it all wrong. This needs to be that they don't even think about it. It's just day to day. So these kids come in and we do that before they start their tutoring. They get a wee healthy afternoon school snack and then they're ready to learn. Like, because if you're not mentally in the right headspace, how am I going to teach you algebra or talk about the transfer test if you're already struggling? So it's about just incorporating it into the education system. So that's what it is, nurturing minds.
How are we going to get, you said it's taken too long, it's taken too long, but how, is there something happening where we can get this for our children in our schools?
There is definitely people making waves and it's getting there, but the problem is teachers are under the pump. Like they are trying to do absolutely everything. And then you're saying, okay, now we want you to do this. And you're going, they're at the point where they're like, I can't do any more. So there needs to be more support. There needs to be less expectations of all the admin that's not important when we're facing a mental health crisis. Like I have children in P4 and P5 who are still struggling post-pandemic. They don't know how to socialise or interact. They have anxiety going back to school. They have feelings of not feeling good enough because we don't know what they picked up on in those 2 years that they were listening and overhearing their parents' conversations or hearing the news about the world closing down. I mean, can you imagine if that was us when we were younger? You just don't know that impact and we're starting to see it. So there's things being done and there's workshops happening, but I feel like sometimes mental health's kind of like a part-time thing where people dip in and dip out of it, but it needs to be brushing your teeth, like kind of mentality. It's routine. It needs to be like a kitchen floor that needs brushed every day. And that's what I'm trying to do. So I didn't feel like it was working quick enough. And I've only got this one catchment area, but the goal is hopefully one day to be all over Ireland. I just need
shivers. I just got shivers there because this is what we need. This is what we need.
Yeah.
So just like Sunrise Social, only it's going to be the nurturing minds. I can see it. This is happening. Oh my God. So many parents listening to this because this goes out on my Dig Mama and Dig for Success. This is a thing that we need to be encouraging our kids to hear more as well. Like if they are going to be online, maybe they could be listening to someone like you that's talking about things like this to help them. Absolutely. I could talk to you all day. The first time I've talked to you, but it's certainly not going to be the last. No. We're promised we're maybe going to get to go for something to eat sometime in a time today because you have to climb Mount Everest. Of course you do. And go to a meeting. But I just want to say thank you so much. I reached out to you on social. You didn't have to say yes. So thank you for being on the Dig podcast. We're going to link pips and all the things that you've mentioned in our show notes and also when we're sharing it on social because why are we doing all this? To actually help people, because I'm not sitting here for the crack and neither are you. So if somebody's listening to this and they actually turn to someone for support, then we have done our job. Yeah. Thank you for being on the Dig podcast. If people want to follow, can you tell us again then your handle?
Yes, it's at a county down under. And it's great now because that was only ever meant to be in Australia. But here I am, the other side, full circle. So it kind of balances out. People think I'm an accountant down under. It's a county down under. So you can find me there. You can find me on the podcast. And, just reach out if you're struggling because I understand.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And thank you for everything you do, Caroline. You're amazing and keep up the fantastic work, but always try and find time for yourself.
I know, sure. Like, how are we going to do that? But yes.
Into the choir.
I know. Thank you so much.
Thank you.